The 2024 Las Vegas Grand Prix just took place. Max Verstappen took his fourth world title. Mercedes finished a strong 1-2. Haas regained their P6 position in the Constructors' title because Alpine did not score any points. One of the Williams driver crashed in the weekend, and Ferrari got closer to McLaren in the Constructor title. Let's go through each of the team's performance, starting from the worst performers of the weekend, ending with the race winners, starting with Alpine Renault. These guys always show some promising pace during the qualifying, and somehow they managed to mess it up. Brazil was an outlier, but since Austin Pierre Gasly has been qualifying well and he is consistent with the car, but somehow they're incapable of converting that into the points. This race was absolutely horrible. I know Pierre Gasly had that engine issue for which he retired from the race, but Esteban Ocon had strong pace and it was looking promising. Could have scored a point or two, but he had that free drive-through penalty for no reason, I guess, force of habit. These guys really need to get their shit together. Right now, they're trailing behind Haas by 1 point for the battle for P6. Up next, we have Williams Mercedes. So these guys have a curse, the Williams curse. Earlier, it was Nicolas Latifi, then it was Logan Sargent, and now it is Franco Colapinto. It's always one driver who is consistently putting it in the barriers, and this is one of the primary reasons why they have very less money to develop their car and be competitive. Now, speaking of the race, Alex Albon had a little bit of promising pace, at least in the first half of the race, and then he had the engine issue, so he had to retire the car. Franco Colapinto never really looked competitive. I think the initial hype has gone away. There were a few races in which he performed really well, or I guess the circumstances made him perform really well. But I think the hype around Franco Colapinto is slowly dying down, particularly after his back-to-back heavy crashes, one in Brazil and another one in Las Vegas qualifying. And he wasn't even pushing that hard in that qualifying lap. He just lost it. Even if he made that lap, I don't think it was going to make a big impact in his starting position. He started from the pit lane, struggled throughout the race. A weekend to forget for these guys. Next, we have Kick Sauber Ferrari. For a second, I thought Zhou Guanyu may score a point, but obviously keeping Sergio Perez behind in a Red Bull is gonna be difficult, especially when you're driving a piece of shit car which has no upgrades and consistently comes last in the grid. Valtteri Bottas tried to work out the ambitious one-stop strategy. It didn't really work out. They had to pit in the dying stages of the race anyway. It was not their day. It is not their year, and both of these drivers don't have a seat for the upcoming season. It is what it is. Another race to forget for these guys. Up next, we have Aston Martin Aramco Mercedes. For a second, I thought Fernando Alonso could score some points, but he kind of started with a terrible strategy. So he started with the softs, which are never the tire choice for this type of track. And he expected a early safety car, just like last year, which didn't happen. There were 0 safety cars throughout the race. So the strategy backfired. Lance Stroll had some radio problems. It's not like he could have scored any points anyway. Let's just be happy that he brought the car home. Up next, we have the Vcarb guys. Now, Yuki Tsunoda finished 9th and Liam Lawson finished 16th. It may appear that they fucked up, but in reality, their performance was actually good. So Yuki Tsunoda lost 3 places to Oscar Piastri, Nico Hülkenberg, and Lewis Hamilton. Piastri and Hamilton were arguably in faster cars, and Hülkenberg had, I guess, better execution of the race. The Haas, they're good at that. Lawson was never in a fighting position, really. He started 14th or 15th, something like that. In the second stint in the mediums, he ran a little bit too long, and that ended up costing him too much time. Up next, we have Haas Ferrari. Kevin Magnussen could have scored points. Tried to make the ambitious one-stop work, and he ran a little bit too long in the second stint. The gamble didn't pay off. Nico Hülkenberg, on the other hand, had a really well-executed race, scored 4 points, finished P8, and now they're back at P6. They are 1 point ahead of Alpine, and there are, I think, 4 points ahead of the Vcarb guys. If I were to pick someone to win that battle for P6, it's these guys. Up next, we have Red Bull Racing. Max Verstappen got 10 points after finishing in 5th, ahead of Lando Norris. Everything he needed to do to secure his world title, got the maximum performance out of the car, and this is the only win Red Bull has this year because they have lost the constructor title thanks to Sergio Perez's inconsistencies and his ability to not perform week in, week out. Up next, we have McLaren Mercedes. Norris and Piastri finished P6 and P7. They didn't really have much pace to begin with throughout this weekend. They looked like they were in the back foot. The best thing that worked out for them is that Mercedes took the 1-2, which is the biggest chunk of points away from Ferrari, their championship rivals for the Constructors' title. And they need to perform well for the remaining 2 races if they want to win the Constructor title. Up next, we have Ferrari. Carlos and Charles finished P3 and P4, good amount of points. That is the best they could do. Carlos was a little bit upset about the pit issue because Ferrari called him to the pits and in the last second they said that no, we're not ready. Typical Ferrari stuff. I think they did it deliberately to give Charles Leclerc the chance to finish on the podium. And Carlos Sainz understood it. That's why towards the end of the race, he continually gave Max Verstappen DRS so that Leclerc would find it difficult to overtake him. Just a theory, do whatever you want with it, but well driven from both of the drivers. And finally, we have Mercedes. Amazing one to finish, well managed from George Russell from start to end. Lewis Hamilton, great recovery drive, started P10 and finished on the podium, 2nd position. Good performance. He was looking quick, but let's be honest, he was never going to challenge Russell for the win, especially when the degradation is too high. All of the commentators were hyping him up for some fucking reason. So that's the whole race. Kind of a boring race. I mean, a lot of exciting things have happened, but overall, I think the race was a bit boring. Yes, Verstappen won his 4th world title. Yes, Mercedes got a 1-2. Yes, Ferrari got closer to McLaren in their constructors' title. Yes, Haas went back to P6 position in the constructor standings. But like the race was kind of uneventful. Like the fastest team won the race. The second fastest team came second. Red Bull and McLaren were kind of evenly matched. I'll give edge to Red Bull. Sergio Perez is shit, so that is like not representative of their true pace. And after that, there was McLaren and all of the other drivers after that, after McLaren. They finished based on how well they executed the race, how well their strategy was, and stuff like that. So kind of a mundane race, but really interesting outcomes. I'm only looking forward to Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, I'm not gonna lie. I think Qatar is gonna be a boring one too, but let's see what happens. I'm only excited right now for the constructors' battle between Ferrari and McLaren. I think Ferrari is gonna get it. I'm gonna be cheering for Ferrari. It'll be funny if McLaren go home empty-handed despite having the fastest car for the majority of the season. It's just gonna be a little bit funny. Let's see if they chalk it up to luck this time. Thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you later.